Psalm 20 or Psalm 37. So we're going to be looking in the Psalms for just a few moments tonight. I got to thinking this morning that I got home and I told Wanda, I said, man, I don't know what happened. I said, I just knew Danny was going to be there, and Guy and I, Mike, talked about it up here, and the more I thought, then it dawned on me, Danny told me he wasn't going to be here today. The problem is, Danny told me that a month ago. So don't tell me something a month behind me and think I'm going to remember it. So I apologize to Mike and the Guy for that. I sure dropped the ball on that. The more I thought about it today, I thought, he did tell me he wasn't going to be here. So anyway, we're going to be looking at something we'd studied, not too terribly long ago, in Psalm 37, and it's titled, this psalm is titled, The Heritage of the Righteous and the Calamity of the Wicked. And, I read this and I think about in the world that I live in a lot. I travel a lot back to our corporate office, and I think about what those folks chase. They're good people. They're friends of mine, but I look at some of those young people and their focus is on money, which we all have to have money. Money's what greases the wheel for us, but that shouldn't be our focus. And sometimes we get to thinking that the world is just, God blesses the world and we're easy for us. And we struggle some days to make ends meet, and we struggle with this and struggle with that, and we forget how truly blessed that we really are. Beginning in it's a rather lengthy reading, but I'm going to go ahead and just read this. It's starting in verse 1, it says, "Do not fret because of evildoers, nor be envious of the workers of iniquity. For they shall be cut down like the grass and wither as the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and feed on his faithfulness. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. He shall bring forth your righteousness as the light, and your justice as the noonday. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret because of him who prospers in his way, because the man who brings wicked schemes to pass. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. Do not fret. It only causes harm. For evildoers shall be cut off, but those..." Mindy, I forgot to turn that on. "For evildoers shall be cut off, but those who wait on the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. For yet a little while, and the wicked shall be no more. Indeed, you will look carefully for his place, but it shall be no more. But the meek shall inherit the earth, and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. The wicked plots against the just, and gnashes at him with his teeth. The Lord laughs at him, for he sees that his day is coming. The wicked have drawn the sword and have bent their bow to cast down the poor and needy, to slay those who are of upright conduct. Their sword shall enter their own heart and break, and their bows shall be broken. A little that a righteous man has is better than the riches of many wicked. For the arms of the wicked shall be broken, but the Lord upholds the righteous. The Lord knows the days for the upright, and their inheritance shall be forever. And they shall not be ashamed in the evil time. And in the days of famine they shall be satisfied. But the wicked shall perish, and the enemies of the Lord, like the splendor of the meadow, shall vanish. Into the smoke they shall vanish away. The wicked borrows and does not repay, but the righteous shows mercy and gives. For those blessed by him shall inherit the earth, but those cursed by him shall be cut off. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down, for the Lord upholds him with his hand. I have been young, and now I am old, and yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his descendants begging for bread. He is ever merciful and lends, and his descendants are blessed. Depart from evil and do good, and dwell forever. For the Lord loves justice. He does not forsake his saints. They are preserved forever. But the descendants of the wicked shall be cut off. The righteous shall inherit the land and dwell in it forever. The mouth of the righteous speaks wisdom, and his tongue talks of justice. The law of his God is in his heart. None of his steps shall slide. The wicked watches the righteous and seeks to slay him. The Lord will not leave him in his hand, nor condemn him when he is judged. Wait on the Lord and keep his way, and he shall exalt you to inherit the land. When the wicked are cut off, you shall see it. I have seen the wicked in great power, and spreading himself like a native green tree, yet he passed away, and behold, he was no more. Indeed, I sought him, and he could not be found. Mark the blameless man, and observe the upright. For the future of that man is peace, but the transgressors shall be destroyed together. The future of the wicked shall be cut off, but the salvation of the righteous is from the Lord. He is their strength, and in time of trouble, and then the Lord shall help them and deliver them. He shall deliver them from the wicked and save them, because they trust him. In this psalm, it's a psalm that David wrote. He tells us to not fret, and that's something I think it's difficult. At least it's difficult for me, is to not fret. We're told not to worry, and to wait on the Lord. We live in a world where we're kind of a right now gratification kind of society, and I tend to be that way. I tend to want things to happen right now. But the Lord says, wait. He says, do not fret. In verse 3, it says, trust in the Lord. I think that's where we struggle a little bit, or at least I struggle a little bit, is trusting. You know, when we pray, we know God hears our prayers, but we have this voice within us that tells us that we want an answer right now, and the Lord will answer us in his time. It's his time, not our time. He goes on and he says in verse 4, he says, delight yourself also in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord and trust in him. When we think about the desires of the heart, and we think about what God will grant to us, God will grant to us those things that he knows that we need. And I think about these folks that are very wealthy, and I know you have too. I've had opportunity to be around those folks, and and some of them are incredibly wealthy, just stunningly wealthy. And but I look at them and I look at their life, and I'm not envious of their life. I've seen what that wealth does to them. I was back when we did those guided hunts and things. We had a fellow there, and he had won the Georgia lottery. And this man, I don't remember how many hundreds of millions of dollars that he had won. But this guy was he was a nice guy. Don't misunderstand. But he was a maintenance guy at an apartment complex, if I remember the story correctly. And he won the Georgia lottery. And it was amazing the friends that he had. I mean, they came out of the woodwork. It was just incredibly amazing. And he told us, and he was a nice guy, but he told us that he had gotten phone calls and letters and everything from people around the world, wanting money, and they had every reason in the world to want his money. And to the point that he basically shut off his communication with other people and had to have somebody else do his communicating for him. So when I think about verse 4, when it says, delight yourself in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart, I'm sure that man said, man, I'd love to win the lottery. And wow, here he did. He won the lottery. But I'm not sure he got the desires of his heart. So, in that particular instance, wealth is not all it's cut out to be. We talked this morning about submission. And in verse 5, it talks about committing your way to the Lord and trusting in the Lord. He tells us that we're to commit our lives to him. And this morning we talked about submitting ourselves, body and soul, to Jesus. And here he says, commit yourself to the Lord. He tells us he's going to take care of us, and he will. He'll take care of us, but he also expects us to commit our lives to him. In verse 7, he says again, he says, do not fret because of him who prospers in his way. And to me, what he's telling me when I read that is Bob, quit looking over the fence and quit worrying about what everybody else is doing. You worry about yourself, and I'm going to take care of you. Don't sit there and fret about what somebody else is doing or what they have or what they don't have. And he jumps down to verse 8, and again he says, do not fret. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. Do not fret. It only causes harm. And we were talking with Wanda, and I had to go to Childress the other day, and we were talking with Dr. Henderson, and Dr. Henderson was talking about all this stuff that's going on with these mass shootings, and he said it just infuriates him that happens, and that society has come, to that they do that, and I think about that. I think about the other things that go on in this world, and if you sit there and read, and I read the internet news, and I'll watch the news at night, and you watch that and you think, what kind of world do we live in? And it makes you angry listening to that. But David says, don't fret about that. Just quit worrying about it. All it does, I think he's saying here, all it does is raise your blood pressure. Don't do that. There's nothing that you and I can do about those things, other than over here it says to do good And we're told as Christians to do good, to do those things that are right. In in Psalm 46, when we talk about not fretting and not worrying. And that's something that I have to pray about on a regular basis, is to not worry about those things that I think need to be happening, that I think, this needs to happen, or to not fret and to worry about those things that go on at work, or those things that go on within the family. We live in a time where we face these kind of trials and these kind of struggles. And in Psalm 46, there's a passage in here that it means a lot to me. In here it says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations, and I will be exalted in the earth." Here the psalmist says, just be still. Just be still and know that I am God. There's not one thing in this earth and on this earth that our God and our Creator can't do. There's nothing too big, nothing too small that our Creator can't handle. And sometimes we get to worrying about that. And this is a big deal. This is a problem. An example I think of, what was it? A year ago, I can't remember now, but a year ago that North Korea we were on the cusp of war, and all the verbiage going back and forth, and that bothered me. It really bothered me because I thought, I listened to the news reports and I thought of all the mass casualties that would happen if that took place, the absolute mass slaughter of people, and it bothered me. And then I read this and it says, "Be still." Just be still and know that I am God. And now here we are. We're not hearing that dialogue anymore, and that's cooled down. And I'm confident that our God and our Creator had a hand, and a big hand, in that. In Exodus chapter 14, beginning in verse 13, "And Moses said to the people, 'Do not be afraid. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you this day. For the Egyptians who you see today, you shall see them again no more forever.'" Now we think about the struggles that we see and the problems that we have in this world today, and we talked about that threat of nuclear war with Korea, and we talk about all the problems that we see around the world, and we see all these people that are headed up from Mexico, and they're gonna invade our country and all those things, and we stop and think about this. Stop and think about the children of Israel. They've left Egypt, and they've walked and they've walked, and now God has put them in this place. He's put them in a place where they have no escape. The largest army of the world is coming down their throat right now, and they've seen what that army can and will do. they've seen it firsthand what the Egyptian army could do. And they have their back against the Red Sea. And they, in their mind, they know that the biggest slaughter of their life is about to take place. And they're saying, why did God do this to us? Why has he done this to us? He did this to us. God did this to us. He actually did. He put them in that position for a reason. He put them there to show them his power. And I think that's sometimes we forget the power of our God and our Creator. And so Moses said, don't be afraid and stand still. You be still and you watch the power of God. And you watch salvation be delivered to you. And they saw the most amazing thing that is recorded to me. It's just amazing to me. They saw their salvation, and they saw the prophecy of Moses come true. They never saw those Egyptians again. So, as we look through the psalm, and we look at what God does for the righteous, and how he holds the righteous in his hand, and we look at the evil that's in the world, and sometimes we think that the evil is gaining the upper hand, but it's not. God sees and God knows. God knows our plight and he knows our trouble. And he has us in the hollow of his hand. And he's not going to let us be snatched away. We read that this morning. He said, the righteous will not be snatched out of the hand of God. And here the writer says, don't worry, God has you. You quit worrying about all that stuff over in somebody else's backyard. You just take care of yourself and you stay faithful. See, to wait on God is to yield your will to God. And God tells us to wait on him. And sometimes you wonder, well, why does God tell us to wait? Why does not God answer my prayer right now? And I really struggle with that sometimes when I'm in a situation that I'm kind of like old Jerry Clowers with just shoot up in amongst us. One of us got to have some relief, and I kind of want that right now. Well, I think there's a reason that God does that. I think that he does that to build our character. He does that to teach us about patience. And I kind of had to laugh. Mike told me he didn't pray for patience anymore, and I don't either anymore. I don't want that test that's there. I'm not kidding you. I don't want it. But it grows our patience. It establishes our belief and our understanding and our faith in God. It builds resolve and it builds fortitude. It generates hope. And it grows our faith. You see, when we choose not to wait on God, then by our actions, we're rejecting God's will. There's a reason that God expects us to wait. And he has that. He has our best interest in mind. For us to grow as a Christian, God tells us to wait on him. I know your plight. I know where you are. Just wait. In Psalm 46, he said, be still. Just be still. And I know all you mothers have had that same conversation with your children. Just be still. Just wait. And no doubt David wanted relief from his problems immediately. But by waiting on God, he put his faith in God. This prepared David for those storms that were inevitable in his life, that were coming. See, David was described as a man after God's heart. And David was tested time and again, and time and again. And no doubt he got anxious. But he didn't give up his faith. I think about Job. And we in the first 3 or 4 chapters, and it talks about all that happened to Job. He lost everything he had. He lost his children. And it says in this, and in this Job did not sin. Job held to his faith in God. Even his wife said, why don't you just curse God and die? See, it wasn't just Job that it affected. It was her too. It was her too. And her response was, just curse God and die. Just get it over with. But Job didn't. He held to his faith. Not knowing what was going on, not knowing that God was going to restore everything that he had lost, not knowing that he was a pawn in a situation between God and Satan. And God made a point to Satan that this man's a righteous man. So we need to be still, and we need to hold to our faith. So we too are like this. We want action now. We want answers now. We want change now. But God tells us to wait. And so we say, why? God has his reasons when he tells us to wait. That may be that God is preparing for us for something that's coming. We don't know what that is. But as I look back in my life, I truly believe and I understand now that those things, some of those things that God put me through were to prepare me for where I am today. And so those things that happen in my life now that cause me to say, I want an answer now, God. I mean, I want some relief. I think God is preparing us for something that's coming. God is equipping us for the storms that come in life, because the storms that come in life are inevitable. They're part of this. But God is equipping us for that. Tonight we'd like to offer the invitation to anybody that might need the prayers of the church, that might need help in some way. And what we would encourage you to do is come as we stand and sing.